Welcome back, everybody, to Bulldog TV and the Coach Adkins Show. We've got a big game. We're halfway through the season. Friday night's a big game, Coach. We've got Mount Zion coming in. Some say it might be the Apollo Conference championship game, but obviously you got work to do after this week. But let's get right into it. This week, obviously the toughest game of the regular season, besides maybe a Morton game. How do you defend guys like Trimble, McAtee, while making sure Harvey doesn't go off? There's a lot of weapons on that Mount Zion Braves team.
Yeah, no question. I would say every game is a big game, right? Every game is an opportunity for us to get better and hopefully put a W in the win column. So every game is a big game, but this one certainly, if you're a fan or a media person, you could probably circle it as the potential conference championship. They're undefeated. We both have just a couple games to go. We've been playing well up to this point, and so yeah, again, if you're a fan, I absolutely think you should be here to watch this game. It should be incredibly exciting. I'm happy for our kids and the opportunity that they get to play in a big time game like this. With a chance to knock off an undefeated Mount Zion team, a very good undefeated Mount Zion team, and like you mentioned, that has a ton of weapons. You can't just focus on Braden Trimble because McAtee, he's a player, man. He's incredibly good. The Harvey kid is one of the fastest kids I've seen. Only a sophomore, so we got to deal with him for a couple more years. And then even the Anderson kid. I mean, his size alone right there presents a ton of problems. They got a 3-year starter at quarterback. I mean, I could go on for days just about how talented this Mount Zion ball club is, and incredibly well coached, right? Patrick does a great job with these guys. Again, when you try to take away something, he's going to find ways to be able to take the other thing that essentially you're trying to give them. And so we're definitely going to have our hands full. There's no question about it. Love the fact that we're at home, right? Our student section, the dog pound over there is going to be rocking. And again, it's going to be a great environment and a great opportunity for our kids to be in this high profile of a game.
Yes, sir, and the weather looks great. I looked ahead to that. Obviously, that's a factor when you look at football, and we've been pretty fortunate. Weather's going to be great. Friday night lights are going to be on. We talked a little bit about some of those big players on their side. A lot of their big names play both ways. Is there any thought or planning that came into this week to give maybe some different looks offensively to try to avoid some of those two-way superstars, so to speak?
Well, I don't know if I can go into too much detail of the game plan. But they do have a bunch of two-way players, right? And again, rightfully so. Those kids are probably good enough and maybe due to some number factors or whatever. But for whatever reason, the coach decides to play several of them two ways. So that's definitely, in the back of our minds on both sides of the ball, right? Typically the way that we play, right, it's hard for two-way players to play. It's hard for teams to make substitutions, right? So again, we feel good about when those guys are out there. There's a really good chance that they're going to stay out there. And like you mentioned, because they essentially never leave the field, we're going to try to use that to our advantage, whether it's the corrections and adjustments that we make on the sideline that hopefully they don't get to because they're still out there on the field, right? And then certainly just the way that we play overall. We're going to try to take advantage of that, and we'll see what happens.
And you pretty much jumped into the next question, which is tempo. You talked a lot all season long about your offensive tempo. How important is tempo in a game like this, especially given that a lot of guys are going two ways on their side? Talk a little bit more about that and what you're looking for.
Yeah, no question. Again, the way that we play, I think, is absolutely going to help us with all their two-way players that they have. Typically you want to play fast to kind of get the big dogs tired, right? When you got linemen going both ways, we want to get those guys tired, and that's typically, what tempo can do for you. They have more skill guys going two ways, so in theory you would think that they would be in more shape and it wouldn't affect them as much. But again, as far as tempo is concerned, the way that we play and as fast as we play ultimately doesn't give them a chance to get the call or maybe be able to again, get that adjustment, right, if we go back to back, same plays or whatever. So that's where I think tempo is going to be be really big for us. Again, like I mentioned, with their two-way players, even though the majority of them are skill guys, the goal with the tempo is certainly to be able so that they have to kind of stay in a base look and can't do anything exotic to give us any different crazy looks or whatever, and playing fast. And again, we feel good about the way that the way that our tempo is and the way that we've played up to this point. And certainly, I expect to see the same thing again on Friday.
Awesome. I'm going to throw a little bit of audible at you as we're talking here. I thought of some things. And Coach, you talked about in week one, there's a lot of new faces, right? A lot of seniors have graduated, a lot of guys not coming back. Talk about the growth that you've seen now leading into a game like this and the experiences that these young guys have had. I see on the field from our vantage point a lot of sophomores looking like juniors, juniors looking like seniors, seniors doing their thing. Talk a little bit about that in this short kind of week 5, week 6 now, how progressively quicker that's become, it seems like, at least from the sidelines.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we tell them all the time, you're not a sophomore anymore, and you might be by grade or the classes that you take, but you've got games under your belt now, and you can't be or can't play like a sophomore anymore. And again, I feel like our kids have absolutely rose to that challenge. I would say the one major difference from how we were week 1 to where we are now, I think, is absolutely confidence. I think our kids are just playing with a confidence and a swagger about them that not only do they know their job and know their rule and assignment, and then to be able to execute it, but then certainly you pile some wins on there, and that makes you feel good about yourself, right? And again, I feel like our kids aren't playing like sophomores for those sophomores that we have, right? And again, I credit to our coaching staff, the way that they come to work each and every day with our kids. Credit to our kids for continuing to come back to work and knowing that we always have things that we got to work on and get better at. But at the end of the day, I would just say that we just walk around differently now than we did, leading up to that week 1 game, or even certainly after that week 1 game. We've been able to put together some really good performances, and that's got our kids playing with confidence. And anytime you can play fast, physical, and with confidence, you got yourself a pretty good ball club.
And all of them against quality opponents for the most part, I would say. Lastly, these questions, as you know, are sponsored by Chad Collins. So he's going a little deeper here on this one, but I'm curious to know the answer. If you could do one game over in the last 3 seasons that you could come back and play again, which game would it be and why?
Again, Chad with the deep questions. That's a tough question because, again, certainly I got too many, right? I mean, we haven't had many losses in the last couple years, but certainly if I could redo that Morris game or that Morton game from 2 years ago, those are 2 that I'd love to have back. Just because I know that if we would have played our best game or the game that we were capable of playing, I truly believe that they both would have been different outcomes. Again, that's not to discredit either one of those opponents. Incredible teams that had great years, but I would have loved to have had those 2 back. And then certainly, in the COVID year, the one chance that we got to play Unity, and I'm not going to make excuses in the fact that we were young. The fact of the matter is we went on the road and we didn't play our best game. We made too many mistakes, and that hurt, right? Again, the old-time rivalry of Mahomet and Unity. I know there was a lot of old-timers that were a little upset that we lost that game, and rightfully so. Again, that's one that I would want to have back. But if I had to just pick one, I truly think that it would be the game against Lincoln my first year. Ultimately, that kept us out of the playoffs. We ended up going 4-5, and missed the essentially if we would have won that one, then we would have went 5-4 and made the playoffs. So we stubbed our toe here at home. They had to run a trick play there at the end. Ended up beating us 13-6. And again, we just didn't play the way that we were capable of playing, and kind of stubbed our toe. Probably maybe went into that game a little bit more confident than we should have at the time. But I wish I could have had that game back because being my first year here, I really appreciated that group of kids buying into the change. For them, I wanted to see them make the playoffs, and knowing that we missed it by one game, and it happened to be that one game, that's something that's probably always going to stick with me again, just for the kids more so than anything else. But yeah, too many to name probably. Those are just a few. But at the end of the day, you don't want to have any regrets. And we talk to the kids all the time about, especially these last 2 years in their playoff losses, don't have any regrets. And when you walk off the field, you have to know and say, we gave it our best shot. That team's just better than us. And so, again, they've been great learning curves for us, each and every one of them. Going back to that Lincoln game, we lost that game and then went on a 4-game winning streak, right? So it did something for our program, kind of changed our mindset, right? We came back to square one of basics, how to wear travel gear right? How to walk the field correctly. So every loss you can learn from, and certainly those are 4 that I feel, even though I'd want to have them back and redo and hopefully different outcome, I definitely think that this program learned something from all 4 of those.
Absolutely, and to your credit, there hasn't been a lot of losses to think about, so true coach doesn't forget any of them. But I like that you pointed out the Lincoln. That was kind of the beginning of the turning of the tide, so to speak, for the program, quite frankly. But hey, let's talk about playoff eligibility. We're 1 win away from being eligible, obviously, Friday night. I expect it to happen. I know your kids expect it to happen. We're excited to be there. Bulldog TV, as always, will be there. Chad, Ryan, and, of course, the Chris Roberts Show. We'll have Coach after the game. That's a wrap for this week, folks. We'll see you out there. If you're local, come join us at the field. That's it for this week's